Commander Vex-12 had seen many terrifying things in his 7 cycles of service. He had witnessed stellar collapses, navigated through ion storms, and once, accidentally walked into the mess hall during what the humans called Taco Tuesday. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for this moment. Status report, he whispered into his communication device, his 3 eyes fixed on the massive creature beyond the transparent observation barrier. Commander, the target has moved approximately 4 meters closer to our position, replied Scout Pip, her voice trembling through the receiver. Estimated time until contact, 30 seconds. Vex-12 felt his internal organs shift with anxiety. The creature, a human juvenile female of approximately 2 solar cycles, sat on the soft green surface the humans called grass, her enormous blue eyes scanning the garden with unsettling curiosity. She was, by human standards, adorable. By Vex-12 standards, she was a walking apocalypse in a pink dress covered with images of something called butterflies. How did we even end up in this situation, muttered Technician Rill from somewhere behind a flower petal. Well, Vex-12 said, adjusting his scanner, if you recall, someone suggested we land our scout ship in what we thought was an uninhabited sector. Then someone else, I will not name names, Rill, insisted that this planet's dominant species would be too primitive to detect us. In my defense, Rill protested, the intelligence report said humans had limited sensory capabilities. Limited compared to what? Scout Pip hissed. A completely blind cave fungus. The little human, whose name tag read Emma in bold letters, suddenly giggled. It was a sound that seemed innocent enough, but Vex-12 had read the classified reports. Human juveniles possessed an almost supernatural ability to detect and capture small creatures. The Galactic Council had documented 17 different species who had attempted covert observation of human children. None had escaped unscathed. She is looking in our direction, Pip announced, her voice climbing several octaves higher. Everyone remain absolutely still, Vex-12 commanded. Our camouflage suits should render us nearly invisible at this scale. The human child, Emma, tilted her head. Her pudgy fingers reached toward a yellow flower, and Vex-12 held his breath. They were hiding beneath that exact flower. Commander, Rill whispered urgently, I am detecting elevated heart rates across the entire team. Also, I may have just lost control of my excretory functions. Nobody needed that information, Rill. Emma's hand passed over the flower, creating a shadow that plunged the alien reconnaissance team into temporary darkness. Then, mercifully, it moved away. She seemed distracted by something else, a small flying insect the humans called a bee. Crisis averted, Vex-12 said, allowing himself a moment of relief. That was when Emma looked directly at them, not near them. Not in their general vicinity. Directly. At them. Oh no, Pip breathed. Oh no indeed, Vex-12 agreed. The massive face descended toward their position, and Vex-12 could see his entire life flashing before his eyes. His graduation from the academy. His first assignment on the Outer Rim. That embarrassing incident with the ambassador from Theta Prime that nobody spoke about anymore. Initiate emergency scatter protocol, he shouted. The team exploded in different directions, their tiny forms darting between blades of grass that, to them, were as tall as skyscrapers. Behind them, Emma squealed with delight, a sound that roughly translated to new toys. In the universal language of predatory enthusiasm, Vex-12 ran faster than he had ever run in his life. His training at the academy had included endurance courses, combat simulations, and diplomatic crisis management. Not once had they covered fleeing from gigantic infant humans who think you are entertaining. Where is everyone? He gasped into his communicator. I am currently hiding inside what appears to be a discarded juice container. Rill responded. It smells overwhelmingly of artificial fruit flavoring. I have taken refuge beneath a small plastic structure. Pip added. Wait, why is it moving? Why is the structure moving? Oh stars, she is picking it up. Through his peripheral vision, Vex-12 saw the catastrophe unfold. The human child had lifted the toy shovel that Pip had hidden under, exposing the tiny scout to the open air. For a moment, Pip froze, her silver suit glinting in the sunlight. Then Emma's hand descended. No. Vex-12 screamed, completely abandoning his military composure. But instead of the crushing grip he expected, Emma's fingers closed gently around Pip, cradling her with surprising care. The child brought the tiny alien close to her face, examining her with wonder. Bug. Emma announced proudly, apparently having decided that Pip was some exotic insect. I am not a bug. Pip protested, though her voice could not possibly be heard by human ears. I am a trained reconnaissance specialist, with advanced degrees in xenobiology and cultural analysis. Emma giggled again, then did something that would later be discussed in Galactic Council meetings for years to come. She opened her hand, placed Pip gently on a leaf, and simply watched Vex-12, still hidden behind a blade of grass, observed this interaction with confusion. The reports had said human juveniles were relentless captors of small creatures. Yet here was Emma, releasing Pip without any apparent desire to cause harm. "Pip, are you functional?" he asked through the communicator. "I think so," Pip replied shakily. "Commander, this changes everything. The child released me. She could have kept me, could have taken me inside her dwelling, but she chose to let me go." "Do not move," Vex 12 instructed. "Let me assess the situation." Emma was now looking around the garden again, her attention span apparently as short as the report suggested. She spotted a red ball several meters away, and toddled off toward it, momentarily forgetting about the bugs she had been playing with. "Rill, Pip, converge on my position," Vex 12 ordered. "We need to return to the ship immediately." "Agreed," Rill said. "I have had enough adventure for one day, and I need to change my suit." They began moving carefully through the grass, using every bit of cover available. The ship was only 20 meters away, but at their size, it might as well have been 20 kilometers. "Contact in 5 meters, Pip reported. That was when they heard it. The sound of small feet padding across grass. Emma had returned. "Pretty bugs," the child exclaimed, apparently having decided that Vex 12 and his team were worth a second look. "Not again." Rill wailed. What happened next would be recorded in galactic archives as the Emma incident, though Vex 12 preferred to think of it as, "That time I nearly had all 3 hearts simultaneously fail." Emma's shadow fell across them like an eclipse, and Vex 12 made a command decision that would either save them or doom them completely. "Everyone, stop running." "What?" Pip and Rill screamed in unison. "I said stop running." Every predatory species in the galaxy responds to fleeing prey with increased aggression. If we stop, perhaps she will lose interest. It was, admittedly, a theory based more on desperation than actual tactical training. But Vex 12 had not survived 7 cycles of service by ignoring his instincts. The 3 aliens froze in place as Emma's enormous hand reached down toward them. Her fingers, each one larger than their entire bodies, moved with surprising gentleness. She scooped up Vex 12 first, and he felt his stomach drop as he was lifted into the air. The view from this height was spectacular and absolutely horrifying. He could see the entire garden, the towering house beyond, and what appeared to be an adult human female watching through a window with an expression that suggested both amusement and supervision. "Hello, little bug," Emma cooed, bringing Vex 12 close to her face. Her breath smelled like what his translator identified as apple juice and crackers. Her eyes, massive and blue, studied him with innocent fascination. Vex 12 did the only thing he could think of. He waved. Emma's face lit up with pure joy. "Bug wave." "Commander, did you just establish first contact protocol with a human toddler?" Pip asked through the communicator, her voice a mixture of horror and admiration. "Desperate times, Pip. Desperate times." Emma carefully placed Vex 12 on her palm, then proceeded to collect Rill and Pip, arranging all 3 aliens in her hand like precious treasures. She walked over to a small plastic table and sat down, dumping her collection onto the smooth surface with enough force to make Vex 12's vision blur. "Everyone all right?" he groaned. "Define all right," Rill muttered. "I can no longer feel my lower appendages. I believe I have sustained minor injuries to my pride," Pip added. Emma was now rummaging through a container filled with various objects. She pulled out what appeared to be a miniature cup, a plastic spoon, and several colorful blocks. Then, with the serious expression of someone performing an important task, she began arranging a scene. Is she setting up a tea party?" Vex 12 asked, bewildered. "According to my database," Rill said, accessing his suit's information systems, human juveniles often engage in something called pretend play. It helps them develop social and cognitive skills. "That is fascinating," Vex 12 replied flatly. "Does your database also explain how we escape from said pretend play?" Emma placed the tiny cup in front of Vex 12, miming the act of pouring. "Tea time," she announced. The absurdity of the situation was not lost on Vex 12. He was a decorated officer in the Galactic Reconnaissance Fleet, trained in 17 forms of combat and fluent in 43 languages. And here he sat, apparently attending a tea party hosted by a creature that still required assistance using the bathroom. "I suppose we play along," Pip suggested weakly. "Do we have a choice?" Vex 12 gestured at the massive child who was now offering them imaginary cookies. For the next several minutes, they participated in what was possibly the strangest diplomatic exchange in galactic history. Emma talked to them in her limited vocabulary, a stream of words like nice bugs, and pretty, and more tea. The aliens responded with nods and gestures, knowing she could not understand their actual words, but hoping their body language conveyed cooperation. "You know," Rill said quietly, "she has not attempted to harm us once. Every motion has been gentle, almost protective." "I noticed," Vex 12 admitted. The reports about human juveniles were clearly incomplete. They described them as captor species, but they failed to mention this nurturing behavior. Perhaps, Pip suggested, the humans who wrote those reports only observed the capture part. They never stayed long enough to see what came after. It was a sobering thought. How many species had fled in terror before understanding the full picture? Emma suddenly yawned, a massive gesture that revealed several tiny teeth. She looked toward the house where the adult human was gesturing. Mama. Emma called out. Oh no, Vex 12 said. If she takes us inside that structure, we may never escape. But Emma did something unexpected. She carefully picked up each alien, carried them back to the flower garden, and placed them gently among the petals. Bye-bye, bugs, she said softly, patting the flower with one finger before toddling back toward the house. The three aliens lay there for a moment, too stunned to move. Did she just release us? Rill asked. Again, Pip added. She captured us, played with us, and then released us. Twice. Vex 12 slowly sat up, his professional composure gradually returning. Team, I believe we have just witnessed something unprecedented. This human juvenile captured us not out of malice or hunger, but out of curiosity and a desire for companionship. And when she was done, she returned us to our environment, unharmed. That contradicts everything in the reports, Rill said. Then the reports need updating, Vex 12 declared, standing and brushing pollen off his suit. Now, let us return to the ship before she decides to come back for round 3. They made their way through the grass with renewed urgency, finally reaching their scout vessel hidden beneath a large bush. The ship, barely the size of a human baseball, hummed to life as they climbed aboard. Setting course for the mothership, Pip announced from the navigation console. As they lifted off, Vex 12 took one last look at the garden. Emma was visible through a window, waving goodbye as if she somehow knew they were leaving. He found himself waving back. Commander, Rill said carefully, what exactly will you include in your report? Vex 12 considered this. He could write the standard assessment, full of warnings and danger classifications. Or he could tell the truth. I will report, he said slowly, that humans, even in their juvenile state, are far more complex than we understood. They are capable of gentleness, curiosity, and an almost instinctive drive to protect smaller creatures. Yes, they capture. But they also release. They play, but they do not harm. They are, in their own way, conducting first contact protocols with species they cannot even communicate with. That is quite poetic, Commander, Pip said with a smile. Yes, well, do not spread that around. I have a reputation to maintain. As their ship broke atmosphere and headed toward the stars, Vex 12 made a mental note. The next reconnaissance team would receive additional training. Not in evasion or camouflage, but in understanding. Because sometimes, the scariest monsters turned out to be the gentlest souls, and sometimes, surviving first contact meant learning to attend a tea party. Commander, Rill called from his station, I am receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Command. They want a full debriefing immediately. Tell them, Vex 12 said, settling into his command chair with a weary smile, that we just made first contact with the most dangerous predator in the sector. And she served us imaginary tea. Somewhere below, in a small house on Earth, a little girl named Emma was already asking her mother if they could go see the pretty bugs again tomorrow.